Greetings to all Empowerment Podcast family. It's another beautiful day, another beautiful season, another beautiful session. And yes, we are still in this talk. And as I said, that we'll be bringing you three different episodes that are powerful, that are packed, that are full of life, that are full of insightful conversation and most definitely needed insights. So I'm so happy. I'm excited. This is the finale or the final one. As you know, that we've been on a journey where we are talking on men's mental health. We've been talking on the importance of it. We've been talking on how it affects men. As you know, that we started off with Dr. Kylie Makatini, who's a neuroscientist, and yesterday we had an episode where with Ratiba Mohale, who's a geologist, thought leader, speaker, and also our presenter at the Empowerment Podcast. And as promised, that we will be also having my very own brother, Thulani Yeyeye Gumede, who's a very phenomenal brother of mine. And I'm so excited. I don't know if you could hear from my voice that I'm excited. I've been waiting for this, and I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation. So, without any waste of any further time, let me introduce my guest. He holds a master's degree and he's an author of 12 books. Listen to that properly. He has written 12 books, with two of them talking on fathering in the shadows and fathering in the dawn. And he's a speaker, activist of fatherhood. He's a father himself, and he's a husband to our very own powerhouse, Nompilo Gumede. And he's a regular guest at the Empowerment Podcast, so you guys know him. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my very own brother, Thulani Yeyeye. Brother, how are you, bro?
My leader, thank you so much for um, a powerful introduction. It's very humbling. I'm doing great, my brother, and thank you so much for having me on this great platform. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for that.
I'm very much excited for this. I cannot contain myself because I've
Likewise.
yeah, you know why? I've been watching your YouTube channels, and you're one guy who has already started tackling this topic on raising men. And I've also read both of your books, Fathering in the Shadows and Fathering in the Dawn, and and I've seen how you tackle this topic, and I guess that is why a lot of people now view you as an activist of fatherhood. Because this is not new to you. You've been saying for a last time that this is happening. Men are suffering, and for the longest time it has been taken as no, men need to be strong, men need to be courageous. And I know this is not how we were planning to start it, but let us start like this anyway, because this is very interesting. Maybe to begin this conversation, let me ask you this question. What made you to talk about such a topic whereas no one was talking about it?
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother. I think it's the way I'm wired, if I were to be honest with you, because it's not mainly about writing. It's just the way I've been even before I could write my first book. Whatever issues that were giving our society a hard time, I would be more inclined, to address them. So then when I started writing, it became easier because I could see that obviously this was the biggest elephant in the room, but nobody wanted to talk about it. And having said that, it hasn't been easy because every time you rise and you address these issues, at times some people choose to ignore whatever issues that are at hand, and they tend to focus on you as if you are raising these issues because you are the main one who's suffering from. Only to find that at times you are raising these issues because you have friends, you have family members, people in a society who are suffering from this biggest a crocodile that is busy destroying people in a community, but nobody wants to talk about it. And it's something that I told myself from day one that I need to keep doing consistently. Soon I'll be accepted. But as it stands, obviously, one is swimming against the current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow, that's very, very profound. And let's get to the conversation. Um, Maybe I've been asking this question and I've been receiving a similar answer, but with different ways of putting it and with different ways because people experience things differently. But I will ask you also again, what is mental health for you? Maybe put it to a person who's not familiar to the term.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think um, mental health, maybe we just need to break it down into two, because obviously we have two words there. It's mental and the other one is health. In isiZulu we call them ezempilo. It talks more on your wellness, as a human being. So it has to do with health and your wellness. But when you look at mental, it has to do with your mind, your thinking, your feeling, your wanting. It has to do with those are they call them the core functions. How
Mm,
you think and how you feel and how you desire. Those are the main ones when we look at mental.
sure.
So when you talk about mental health now, we are talking about that core function of how you think, how you process things in your mind, and how you want and how you desire and how you feel. Imagine if that core function in your body somehow was not in good shape. That simply means that a lot of things that has to do with you will be affected. For an example, I like drawing from my own experiences as well, so that I could really paint a vivid picture out there. A couple of years back, I was depressed.
Sure.
Um, the depression obviously a link with the issues on mental health. So being depressed meant I was not in my good state mentally. My health was affected in my mind. So
Mm,
I remember during those days, it was difficult for me to sit still and watch TV. I could not focus for 30 seconds. My
yeah.
mind was like all over the place, wandering. I will sit in the couch or the lounge, try to watch some TV, but I would fail to tell what is it that I'm watching because my mind would be all over the place. So
So,
that simply means that my mind was not in a good state. It was affected health-wise. So you have different people who be affected in different extents, but it simply means that your mind it looks at the state of your mind. Is your mind in a good shape or not? Are you able to think properly, or are you not able to think properly? If I were to use a different example,
okay.
looking at the eyes and the health, you know, if your eyes are not in good condition, it means you are not able to see clearly. So
Yeah.
that's what happens with the mind. If your mind is not in a good place, it means you are not able to even think properly. You can easily exaggerate some of the things that shouldn't be exaggerated
Mm,
because your mind is not in a good place. At night, you would find yourself struggling to sleep,
mm,
because your mind is not in a good place. At times, you sleep long hours than necessary. So it looks at things like that,
mm.
when we talk about mental health. Yeah.
Oh, I think you've just made it so simple. I'm sure all of our listeners are now having a clear picture on what is mental health. And I like how you put it.
Yeah.
It's
Just on that, my brother,
okay.
if I
Go
may,
on.
if I may cut you, sorry, if you don't
Definitely.
mind. I just don't want to lose this point in case we move to the next point. I think one of the things that I keep highlighting about us as men is
Mm,
that
mm,
we are wired differently. A lot of us men, when our cars have minor issues like the engine, is not sounding good, we are
mm.
too quick to rush our cars for service.
Sure.
Ask around what is it that needs to be done with our cars.
Yeah.
But the biggest challenge that we have, which I think is the main reason we have this conversation, is that when there are certain things in our minds that are not in good state, we don't really bother to rush to seek help, and that's where the biggest problem is. Thank you
Mm.
so much. I just needed to highlight that as well.
No, man. As you are answering that, I was going to add on asking as to how then is mental health affecting men specifically? Because remember that here we're talking on men's mental health, and you just touched on it as to it's us as men we address it differently with just any.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that answer. And as I was saying that, as you put that point, I was just about to ask you to then bring it to how it affects men, and you just went through to that. And thank you for that. Um, my second question will then be, um, can we then trace this mental illness back to our how we were raised, back to our upbringing, and if so, how does it affect us now at this point? Mentally? Is it leaving us mentally stable, or is it mentally damaging? What condition does it
Mm,
put us in mentally, how we were raised, either good or bad?
yeah. No, no, no. That's a good one. And it's quite a lot. I think there's quite a lot that one can say there. Maybe just to paint a picture, um, a lot of guys that I tend to deal with, most of them are quite old. But one thing that keeps coming back is them having to tell me that there are some of the things that happened to them when they were very young,
Sure.
and most of those things are now surfacing, and it kind of like revealing to me that whatever that happened to them when they were very young is now affecting them in a negative way. Obviously, for some it will be positive depending on what the treatment was,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
growing up where I grew up, there used to be this thing whenever guys will drink. As soon as they are drunk, they will start, telling me about things that happened to them when they were very young,
Sure.
and most
Yeah.
of those things will be negative. So
Yeah.
you will sit there listening to them and realize that, hey, people are going through things. Whatever things that have challenged them when they were young, you find that now they are surfacing. For an example, there's somebody that I've worked with. I'm not going to go into details in sort of
Okay.
defining him.
No
But
problem.
I know I used this example about a week ago when I was talking to another platform. This guy is quite old. He's in his 60s, but he was telling me that he's this old, but he's still feeling pain for the mere fact that his father never used to tell him that he loved him
Mhm.
growing up.
Sure.
So those are some of the things that when you look at them, they are now affecting men, or men in particular, because we are talking about men. But
Yeah.
it's not only restricted to men alone. A lot of people who go through challenges, those things that they went through and they never got a chance to address, they keep coming back.
Mm.
And what tends to happen, people try to run away from that, especially men. People
Mm.
will try to run away from whatever pain, and then they will find themselves drinking or using drugs just to numb the pain, because that thing keeps coming back
Mm.
regardless of how young you were when you experienced it. But up until it is addressed, it keeps haunting you. So it affects a lot of men who have not opened up about whatever challenges that they've gone through. And yeah, and you look at us, we struggle with things like um, therapy. So while we struggle with therapy, these things are just trapped inside of us, and they find different ways of coming out. It could be in the form of abuse, or overdose on drugs, or just hiding with some substance. So that's a challenge I feel a lot of people are faced with. Yeah.
I want to ask you something. I'm picking up something as you just answered. You know, you're talking that back then, guys used to easily speak up about a lot of things that they've experienced whenever they are intoxicated, whenever they are drinking. So that shows that men do want to speak, but does alcohol make it more comfortable for them to speak, or does it put them at the state where they are vulnerable? Why is it? Because then that creates another habit of becoming an alcoholic. Why is it that men find it easy for them to speak whenever they're intoxicated, rather than having such a person, to speak to? I don't know if you get my question, but why is it easy for men to speak whenever they're intoxicated?
That's a good one. I don't know. I think there's that thing obviously with alcohol. It makes you loosen up a bit.
Sure.
And I'm not promoting anything on about alcohol.
No, we get you.
It makes you loosen up, you know. If you are a shy guy, whenever he has had a glass or two, you know,
Yeah,
he gets a bit bolder to approach a
yeah,
lady and express himself how he feels, you know.
sure.
So it seems as if there's that thing with alcohol, you know, that sort of gives you it gives you that vavavoom, you know, you feel like, you know, you can be brave. And then and it also does something to you that makes you feel like, now let me talk, because these things are like you know, just they're just there in you, and you only get a chance to speak when the platform obviously opens up and you have taken some few classes and stuff.
Sure.
So men do want to talk. Compared to that, I can assure you, I'm a man
Yeah.
myself, and I've
Yeah.
gone through things. Men do want to talk, but my biggest observation has always been that men are wired differently. For them to speak, they first scrutinize the environment, you know.
Sure.
They scrutinize the environment and try to see how safe it is, you know. And having said that, I think it leaves people with a question as to do they create a safer environment, you know.
Yeah.
If I were to be friends with you and I keep bugging you about this other guy who's always offloading things on me, telling me about whatever challenges that is going through, and as I talk to you, I keep complaining that hey, some people, they just need to man up, you know. Some
Sure.
people just need to man up and face their fears and just be men, you know. And then, you know, I'm talking to you, and while I'm talking to you, I'm failing to realize that you have this big elephant on your shoulders that you wanted to speak to me about. Definitely, rarely you'll be able to talk to me about whatever that you're going through.
Yeah.
So a
True.
lot of people, they tend to portray this picture of being ready to speak to whoever is going through hard time, but they don't have that thing in them. You know, when you really look at them or you scrutinize their conduct, you realize that it's easy for people to say men must talk, but when men do talk, people are not ready to listen, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're reminding me of something that was shared by one of our guests. He said, men are ready to speak, but sometimes they feel that they are not heard, you know, and yeah, that's something that we need to look at beyond just preaching
Yes,
that. Sure, sure, you can come in.
just on that, I didn't want to bring this up because, you know, I think one will have to always respect platform regardless of the treatment that you get, you know.
Most definitely.
And this again, I'm gonna say it because I did say it on my channel, that it was not that I was trying to get back at anyone, but I went on the biggest platform in South Africa, and I shared about the passing of our son a couple of years back, you know.
Yeah.
And as I was sharing that, the person that I was opening up to was on their phone, and the person was supposed to interview me. And as I was sharing this, I felt I was not being listened to, you know.
Sure.
And in me opening up about that thing, it ended up leaving me confused. I felt as if I had gone to that platform to share about my pain, whereas as much as I was using my pain as an example, but I was trying to reach out to men and use myself as an example that I've gone through this. So I came back home, I was really not myself about the whole thing that had transpired, because even the questions that were being asked, you could tell that the person was not listening, you know. And the person lost the meaning as to why I was there talking about this thing on air. They failed to hear me, you know. So there I was opening up about something that I could have kept to myself, but I was opening up because I'm thinking about the multitudes of men who are listening to this show.
Exactly.
Instead of this person probing me about how I dealt with this thing, it's kind of like they were trying to feel sorry for me, and then they were missing a bigger picture. So I leave a radio station and I'm going home and I'm thinking, are the people thinking that I was there maybe to
Pity
beg
pie.
people to feel sorry for me? or they are thinking that they are getting the bigger picture that I was there sharing from my personal experiences so that a lot of men could open up, So those are some of the things. The following day, the very same people will be saying, men must speak. But I was there on your show. I opened up, but you were not able to listen to me. The entire time you were on your phone, So it's things like that,
Yeah.
It's not easy, my brother, and I don't want people who are listening think it's easy, because a lot of I'm sorry to say this, but I'm gonna say it again. A lot of us, I think we have this thing. We are more comfortable speaking to the coffins than speaking to the actual people who are going through suffering, So people wait for you to die, then they speak about you, that they wish you would have opened up about whatever that you were going through. But when they go back to analyze, they will see that you've been speaking all along,
Yeah. Say that again.
I just thank God that after that interaction, man, I got endless phone calls for the whole month. Men who were suicidal, who were helped by that conversation. As much as personally, I was not happy with the conversation, the way it played out. I felt disrespected, but God still did the work, because a lot of men who were suicidal, who called me after that interview, it sort of put me at ease that God did the work, So I'm sorry for taking long. I just wanted to paint a picture that these are the challenges that men are faced with. So as we are pushing men to open up, we shouldn't be naive or disregard the mere fact as well that there are some men who are trying to raise everything and put it on the platform, but there are few people who are willing to listen. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you something while we're still on this point before we move on. Do you think that it's not because men don't want to speak? Maybe men are speaking, and for the longest time, maybe we as men to each other, we've been failing to properly communicate this thing. Or is it because there's literally no one to listen? Or is it because I'm taking from the example that you've made, maybe was it the guy didn't necessarily hear what you were saying, or was he not even interested? Or was it because he didn't even know what to say to someone or to a guy if they share such a thing that is so emotional, that is so painful? I don't know. Maybe do you even? I don't even know if I'm making sense with my question. But what I'm trying to say is, do you even know how to communicate such things as men?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think that's a clear answer that I can give. But what I'm gonna make another example that I shared as well on the other talk. There was this guy from Zimbabwe. I was still a student at UKZN. So this guy comes back from holidays. From we're starting the new semester. This guy had visited Zimbabwe. So when this guy comes and says, I ask him how Zimbabwe was, and then he tells me. In him telling me, he indicates that his grandmother passed away,
Okay.
And without paying attention to his response, I just responded saying, all good, man. I was like, no, that's great, man. That's great, And and this guy then said, how Thulani, I'm telling you that I lost my grandmother during holidays, and you are saying that's all great,
Yeah.
So whether we know how to react to people who are feeling pain, I think the worst we can do is to just ignore them entirely,
Oh, yes. Now, okay.
If I don't know how to respond to you, I think the worst I can do is to be on my phone. To just show you that I'm not interested in whatever that you're saying.
Exactly. I hear you.
At times I could be interested, but whatever that you do, just make whoever is telling you something realize that you care about that. If you don't care about it, care about the people who are listening or people who are going to benefit from whatever that the person is saying. So I think people just need to care, because that's why earlier on I said people do have guts to speak to coffins, but when somebody is suffering in front of them, they don't bother. It's only when somebody has died that then they will rush to the mall and look for that suit that they can wear at the funeral, and then and then share those
Yeah.
speeches. People are so comfortable speaking to the coffins than speaking to the one who's hurting. Right now, there's someone who's poor and broke. They are suffering. No one is doing anything. But let that person die. They will be raising money for that person to have a respectable funeral. So that's how we are wired as human beings. You know. Men they are talking. For an example, I just want to use another example. There's a book that I started reading. It's based on a true story. This is an American soldier who was involved in a friendly fire. He ended up killing his own fellow soldier. So he struggled with depression, because of that. And he says the biggest challenge with them being soldiers is that the minute you indicate that you have a mental issue, you get a target on your back, or you get labeled as somebody who's weak,
Yeah.
So that's what we do in our society.
Yeah.
The minute somebody is willing to open up about whatever that they're going through, they get sidelined, and then they're indicated as they're highlighted as people who are weak. So they get sidelined. So those are the challenges that people are faced with.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Gumede, for that answer. Wow. It shows that this topic is very huge, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, and it shouldn't be. It should be approached with very caution. It should be taken, as sensitive as it is. So that we could be able to help one another without wounding one another even more. And it's very important to listen to one another. And when you touched on that, it reminded me that we are people who want to talk more and listen less, whereas our value is with listening more than in talking, because sometimes what we say might not add value that much to the next person than listening to them as it would add value.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that answer. I'm moving on to our next answer. I think this is very personal and sensitive to you, because reading your book, I saw that you wrote a whole chapter on this affirmation. Maybe if I may ask, how important is it for men to receive affirmation?
Yeah, man. I think it's I don't know. If I were to put a percentage on it, I think it will be at the highest, because it is very, very important. Like I was telling you, a lot of people that I deal with, they still suffer from things that they never received when they were very young. So, and that thing of affirmation, of somebody telling you that they are proud of you, that when you grow up as a boy, you just long for that thing, to hear your father say, "Hey, I'm proud of you," "Hey, this is my boy," "Hey, look at this boy, look at what he's doing," So all those things, they just fuel you as a person. They just make you want to go out and conquer the world,
Yeah.
So whoever that is not receiving that, they find themselves incomplete. I remember this one time making an example about Ronaldo, that Ronaldo went to achieve a whole lot in his life, career-wise, but one of the biggest dent in his life is that when his career in football was picking up, he lost his father,
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of people, especially in this regard, I'll talk about footballers, who break down and cry simply because they are now at the top, but their fathers are never there to really cheer on them or say, "I am proud of my son," So we are making it in this world, but there's that gap in our lives, Somebody, I remember somebody a while back, after I had shared on this. I think I was in East London when I was sharing it was a men's ministry there in East London. I was invited to come and share, and after I had shared on this topic, one guy came to me and he pointed out that if even Jesus, before he could start his ministry, there had to be a word affirming that this is my son, that I'm proud or I'm pleased, So it's very, very important for all of us, before we could go out and conquer. When you have that pat on your back from your man telling you that, "My son, I am proud of you," The world can tell you that you are nothing, but if your father looks at you and says, I am proud of you. So affirmation plays a major role. And that's what I do here at home,
Yeah, yeah.
I affirm my boys, because
Mm,
the biggest challenge with affirmation is that if you don't affirm, you tend to focus on the things that people are not doing well. So, and as men, we suffer from that because we easily identify things that are broken, things that needs to be fixed, but we hardly acknowledge things that are running well, things that people are doing well. So, the part of affirmation has to be at the pinnacle of us,
sure.
affirming our sons, affirming our boys, so that they could go out and conquer the world. I think that is very important.
As a person who's raising three sons, and I've met your boys, wow, they're very lovely. Um, how is it? How is it? How is it the experience of raising boys? And with this world and everything that is happening, and with your experience, how is it raising sons?
Yeah, it's it's amazing and challenging at the same time, because I think one thing that makes it interesting and exciting for me was me identifying my role as early as possible. Before these guys could even speak, I started realizing the influence that I have over them.
Yeah,
When their mothers will give them a compliment, it will not matter that much. Not to say a compliment that a woman gives to a son does not matter,
yeah, yeah.
but the minute I will say words, they will then make them react differently. Like, for an example, you'll find that these guys, maybe their mother was trying to push them to eat and encourage them to eat, and then you'll find that they are resisting. But the minute I say, wow, my boy is eating, immediately it fuels them with this thing, of wanting, to just do that and make their father proud. So I think we are in that relationship where I'm doing my best to be a model, and model to them,
Mm, mm.
and get a picture of what a man is, because a lot of us, again, just on that, we are drowning in this thing of trying to figure out what a man is.
Yeah, yeah.
So being a father to these boys, it's just so exciting, because here I am playing a role, portraying to them who they need to be, but also um, giving them a definition of who a man is. Because when I was growing up,
Yeah.
a man had a different definitions, and now I'm redefining what a man is. So being a father to the boys is just all about me trying to swim against the current as well, and showing
Yeah,
them
yeah.
what a real man is. So that's where I am. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow, lovely. Um, we all know that one of the stigmas that men carry daily is that a man shouldn't cry, a man shouldn't be emotional, a man shouldn't, like, yabo, indoda ayikhali. We all know it.
Yeah.
And umikhala weak, yabo,
Yes.
iyahluleka, and all those negative things. How can men handle those states? And with your experiences, you've shared a bit on them in the beginning. How have you been able to handle such moments where you feel that emotionally you are drained, you feel like crying, you feel like you don't know how to express the thing within. And how can men handle such moments in their life?
Yeah. That's a good one. I think the main thing that I would need to maybe start off by painting a picture of, to anyone who's listening right now, is for them to understand that if they do not deal with whatever challenges that they are faced with, those challenges are trapped in them, and um, those things will one day explode. And most of the times, it tends to hurt the people next to us, and most of the people who are next to us are the people that we love.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's very important for men to seek help. And when we talk about seeking help, it's not necessarily climbing on top of the roof and tell everyone that you are going through this and that. But it's mainly you realizing that things are not running well, and then seek help. Um, just yesterday, man, I was just talking to one of the guys at work, but he is part of the cast. He's my customer, an old man. He was just telling me interesting things that he had a very a private problem that he had. He couldn't share it openly. So this one time, he was at a taxi rank, So he sees these men who are talking openly about a man who olento lena okwazi ukulapha lento abestrugglisha ngayo yena.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. So this guy tells me that, hey Thulani, I was there, man. All of a sudden I'm eardropping now because these guys are talking about this problem that I've never spoken to anyone about. And this problem is very embarrassing. It's giving me a hard time. So these men were speaking openly. Utu Avasana Wanombola, one of them, this is the guys who's speaking mainly about it. So as soon as those guys were done, I approached him and then he told him that, hey, there's a friend of mine who has this problem. How can we help him?
Yeah.
Man, that's how men address issues. It's never about them. They raise hands in the meetings,
asking for a friend,
trying to source information for their friend. So he did that. Fortunately for him, he was directed to the guy who could help him, and within a week his problem was sorted. So all I'm trying to say, we are not saying climb on a rooftop and tell everyone that you have a problem, but seek help. Seek help. If you feel like you need to cry, there's nothing wrong with we are closet, and go cry there. We are not saying ukuthi khala is noma kanjani phambi kwabantu, but even if ukhala phambi kwabantu, people need to understand ukuthi uDavid mfethu, one of the greatest guys who could fight, mighty guy who could face the army eyedwa, ubekwazi ukukhala kalula mfethu. We have many stories of abantu abapowerful mfethu abakwazi ukukhala, yebo lento le. So ukukhala akusho ukuthi weak, but ukuba weak ukuthi uthule ungakhali ebese ulimaza unkosikazi wakho, ulimaza ingane, ulimaza umzali. Maybe we need to redefine ukuba weak. Ukuba weak singasho ukuthi mhlawumbe umuntu ongabhekani nezinkinga zakhe, ngokungabhekani nezinkinga zakhe agcine sengena utshwaleni eselimaza abanye abantu okungafanele balimale. Because labantu labo kuthiwa ba weak bakwazi ukubhekana nezinkinga zabo, bahlekwe abantu, but uthola ukuthi baya recover from whatever that they were going through. So maybe we need to redefine ukuthi ukuba umupho weak between the two. Okhulumayo bese ba right, nongakhuluma bese limaza abantu around aphinda ilimazele. So I think that's where we need to maybe draw the line ukuthi kahle kahle before we go any further. Let us define ukuba weak,
Okay. I love your answer. I really do. My next question will then be, in our society, it's normal for a man who's trying their level best to be the one to be added more pressure on, as you said, sometimes what men do is not applauded that much, it's always what's left that he could have done better, or what more can he do. There are even trends on it, that says Indoda must, and a lot of other things that we can touch on. But I even wrote on the set of questions, as you also have put it in your book, it's normal for men to have more pressure even when they are trying their levels best. Maybe on that, what makes that? Is it us men, or is it the society that we live in?
Yeah, it's I think it's a society, my brother. It's just a society, man. Now, let me put a picture that maybe will link with this. It's just a society again. I'm just gonna say that repeatedly because what happens is, you find somebody, and this thing that I'm gonna highlight, it's one of those biggest things as well that are weighing heavily on some of our brothers. Umuntu is a breadwinner at home, is supporting, and they've got siblings who are not doing anything, and there's this thing that tends to happen when a person who does not do anything at home. When they buy, like you'll find that every month they are buying some groceries for your extended families, and some of your siblings are also working, but they're not doing anything. The minute they buy like a one loaf of bread and take it home, you hear these big celebration and stuff.
Yeah,
Like, wow, somebody,
praises.
and nobody says anything about you when you do, because it's already expected. So I think people need to understand that when you do something repeatedly, you also create an expectation, and once you've created an expectation, people then tend to demand more.
Ish.
So,
Yeah.
it's just the way things are. There's nothing much we can do about that, but it's just the way things are. So even with men, kuthiwa kushawa edonsayo, isiZulu siqinisile kushawa edonsayo, because the more you do, the more people will require from you, and
Mm.
and then yeah. So in a nutshell, my brother, I think as men we just need to find a way of understanding that that's how things have been structured. Obviously we can work around it to change it, but it's just the way things are.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like for an example, a lot of just on that point in closing,
Okay.
another challenge that we have is this thing of a lot of people are emotionally drained because of the similar thing that I'm talking about. That you have people that you've availed yourself emotionally to,
Yeah.
but because you are availing yourself emotionally, people don't realize that. They just think you are out there living with your family, but day and night you are thinking about your extended family. You are emotionally available for them, and
Yeah.
that on its own can drain you as a man. You find that when you tell people that I'm feeling drained because my family that is 200 kilometers away from me, I'm emotionally available for them, but they are not aware. If I were to sit them down and tell them that, guys, I'm emotionally available for you and I feel drained, they will never understand it. And a lot
Yeah.
of men are drowning because of that.
Yeah.
You've exhausted yourself because you've availed yourself to people who are not even aware that you are available for them. Even
Ish.
if you were to sit them down and tell them that I'm emotionally available for you, how many of us are running our small families wherever we are, but there's an extended family of 30 people that you are emotionally available for? If something were to happen to them, you'll have to stop whatever that you are doing, uhambe mfethu emakhazeni for them, and do all these things. Uthathe ucash wakho that you don't have to support them for funerals and all that, because while they might not attest to this, the mere fact is whenever tragedy strikes. So whenever you think about all those things, they drain you emotionally, but you cannot talk about them because it's difficult to talk about that.
Yeah.
People will feel
Yeah.
like you are weak, but emotionally you are drained.
Mm. Um. Yeah. I like that. So, to whom much is given, much is required. Um.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we sometimes underestimate the price of responsibility. Um.
Absolutely. We do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And moving on to our question, as we are talking on man's mental health, do you think as a country we have we understand this properly and we have put in place the right tools and budgets for it to be addressed? Are we addressing it in the right way? And are we at the point where we say we understand it and we are ready to deal with it as a country?
The thanks. I think I wouldn't say we already there, but I can safely say I think we are headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
If I look at the campaigns that are being made where people are trying to get men to talk, in July, I mean, I was on Ukos for the whole month talking about these things.
Sure.
And for them to give me that platform, I'm still grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different platforms that are being opened up now for men to talk. We are
Mm.
not where we're supposed to be. And another thing that I can maybe highlight while I'm at this, um, I think growing up, I used to think whatever challenges that we are going through as African men, those challenges are uniquely ours. Like, for an example, this thing of what it means to be a man. I used to think African men act in a certain way because it's African to do that. But when
Yeah.
you do studies, you go back to England, UK, or you study Greece, you study Chinese, you go to America, you study Europe, and you go maybe like 500 years back, trying to understand what was so ideal, what used to be characteristics of a man. Back then, these things of men don't cry, men this and that, this thing that we are priding ourselves now as African men, thinking those things are uniquely ours, you tend to realize that, okay, these things used to be prevalent as well in those regions.
Yeah.
It's just that they've somehow managed to be far ahead. Now they're at a stage where men are able to open up. Men are able to speak. It becomes a norm. So they have normalized that. So as Africans, while we are priding ourselves that because I'm an African man, I cannot cry, then you realize that no, it's not because you're an African man, it's because you are behind. Those other guys that we look up to in America, Europe, and Chinese or Asia, they also used to pride themselves in whatever that you're priding yourself with right now. It simply means that you are still behind,
Yeah.
So, for an example, this one will be a bit tricky, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it because I know one day people will catch up to it. In America and Europe, you now have stay-home fathers, a father who stays home and looks after children, and then the mother works. It's foreign, obviously, to us as Africans, but I'm raising that up so that men can understand that looking at the direction we're headed into, that is what is going to be happening 10 years from now. We'll find a lot of stay-at-home fathers. Why? Because of women empowerment, because of everything that government is doing to empower women. And we're not saying it's wrong, but you look at the shift. When I did some studies that I've included in my book, Fathering in the Dawn, you find out that a lot of, when you study in the classes, you find that the women encompass the biggest, they contribute to a biggest a number, or you'll find more females in the class. Even in the workplace now, where I work, there's more women. So most of the places now, you find more women. Obviously, that in 10 years' time from now, you'll find that most jobs will be occupied by women, and they will do a shift as well, So it's something that men should think about, because it's happening in Europe. The mere fact that it's happening in Europe, it means it's going to come to us. About 10 years ago, sorry now, I'm concluding on this point. About 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or whatever, they did away with prayer in those schools overseas, and we laughed at it, like, this guy is that. Now it's happening in our in our territory. So
True.
if you want to be wise, study what is happening across, and rest assured, whatever that is happening across is going to come to you. They started marrying same genders across, and they're like, hey, these people are crazy, and it's happening here. If you want to understand what is going to happen 10 years from now, just look across, and pray if you can, that so that those things do not come and reign in our territory. But whoever who wants to be wise, study those cultures and prepare yourself, brace yourself.
Man, being stay-at-home fathers. I'm just thinking
we don't want to think about that, but if you study the times, that is around the corner. It's around the corner.
Definitely. With one of the episodes, if our listeners going to listen to, I don't remember, was it with Dr. Makatini or was it with Ratiba? We talked on the rates of women being empowered and them occupying big space, as to saying how big is it. I remember I even went into saying, there was something that I was listening that said, if women are being empowered in such a rate, who is empowering men who are going to live with this woman? Because no one is empowering men, and we are going to have Ngambela women who will be at the forefront of most of our leadership things. Not that is wrong, again, as you said, and I'm also not saying it's wrong, but us as men, as we are sitting back, busy, being complacent with all of these things, and how are we going to match up to them, And it's true what you're saying. We are definitely going to be stay-at-home fathers pretty soon if we are at this rate.
It's very true. And the biggest cry, in fact, I highlighted it again in the book, The Fathering in the Dawn, because, you look at the fathers, a fathering in the dawn, it's a new era.
Yeah, yeah,
We are talking about this thing at the moment. It feels as if it's on the surface because we are not delving into marriage. But now, if you were to bother yourself by thinking, how does this affect marriage, Because right now, even as I put that book together, I was dealing with marriages where couples were battling, not because they didn't have enough money, but because the woman is now earning more than a man, and she's not used to it. She doesn't know how to handle this man who earns less than her. So
yeah,
those are the challenges now. Are the women prepared to have men who will earn less than themselves?
Hmm.
Or less than they do. So it's easy for them to say no. As long as he's not intimidated by that, but
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
that easy because this woman, we need to remember that if you studied the times, you'll find that her father was a breadwinner.
Hmm.
Now she needs to switch from seeing her mother working hand in hand with the father who was a breadwinner. Now she is the breadwinner. You'll find that in her mind, she grew up thinking she's going to marry to this man who'll be the breadwinner. And some of the couples that I deal with, even though I don't want to focus much on this because it's just that it links directly with what we're talking
yeah.
about.
Oh,
A lot of guys got married to ladies who were earning like way less than they were earning. But in marriage, things started to change because of the empowerment.
sure.
So you find people who got into marriage in different levels, but now they are married and then things start to change. How do they then master this dynamic shift in their marriage? Because again, we never really bothered to analyze what makes a man the head of a family. We assumed that he was the head of the family because he earned more. So the minute
Oh,
it shifts and the woman earns more than a man, she assumes that now she's going to be the decision maker. And then that affects our marriages. It affects how we raise our children.
yeah.
And then it drives our men even crazier. They will go drinking, taking drugs to numb this pain that they are faced with. Because now they feel like they are lesser of a man. And yeah, those are the challenges, my brother.
Hmm. Oh, I think we need to have more of these conversations, not only because of the topic, but because of the awareness that they come with. I'm learning a lot as you're speaking. I'm really learning a lot, and it's
No, thanks,
opening
man.
my eyes. It's opening my eyes, and I think we need to go back and redefine a lot of terms. Maybe not even redefine, but define as to because we take things lightly because we think we know them. And as you have put it,
Yeah.
being a father, we take it lightly because being a father, it's being a father. No one has actually took time to describe it and to put it into its actual context as to what is to be a father. And
Mm.
I think we are really suffering from even ignorance. A part of it, it's a bit there, and hence we are at the stage that we are in. But moving on with our question, I'd like us to now look at how does the social media world, having not having a life of boundaries with our social, how does it affect our mental states? And with the pressure and the fast pace, I think there's no fast thing as the social world. It's very fast paced and it adds a lot of pressure to the users and to the people who are in it especially those who do not have boundaries for it, who are just in there and they take everything in the social world as real. How much of the mental instability does it create, even for us as men, being on socials?
Yeah. Um, to answer you there, I think it's important for me when you look at mental health. Um, there are many things, obviously, that help people deal with mental issues.
Mm,
One of them is this thing of not talking about therapy. Therapy, obviously, we know it plays a major role. But there are some of these things that we take lightly that we can easily do. I don't know if you've been in a situation where you felt overwhelmed, like you were stressed in a heat of a
yeah.
moment. And then you start to breathe in and out, that sigh, you just
Mm,
breathe
mm,
in and by so doing, you find yourself calming down. And then you
yeah.
realize, "Taibo, I felt like I was under an immense tension. But the minute you breathe in and out, it then calms you, So there's this adrenaline that social media can do, because with social media, you need to realize that with social media, you can be in 5 continents within. You can be in 5 continents within a minute,
Yeah.
So we were not wired for that, man. We were wired to be present in the moment,
Yeah, true.
As a human being, we are wired to be present. I remember this one guy once said something to me that was very fascinating. He made an example of a guy that God asked him to go to the top of the mountain and be at the top of the mountain. Let me repeat that. This guy says God said to this one guy, go to the top of the mountain and be at the top of the mountain.
Okay.
The reason why God said, go to the top of the mountain and be at the top of the mountain is because had God said, go to the top of the mountain, this guy was going to go to the top of the mountain. But the minute he gets there, he was going to start thinking about getting down, So he had to be told to go there and be, meaning be fully present there,
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I think social media robs us, and because of that, even mentally, we get challenged. Saying one of the things that I found out this year about social media and the agenda that social media is pushing, I used to ask myself, I'm a reader, I think I read quite extensively, but there was a time where I started feeling like there was something that was starting to go wrong in me, because every time I would see a post on Facebook that was like 10 sentences, I would feel like, hey, this is long. Why somebody will write something this long? Like 10 sentences, it will feel wrong. And then I realized that somebody said it recently, that we are being pushed to 30 seconds or 60 seconds, So our concentration span now is within 30 seconds to a minute, You go on WhatsApp, whatever status that you put, it's 30 seconds,
Sure.
You go on Instagram, it's 15 seconds. The reels are lasting between, the reels are on Instagram, it's a minute. On Facebook, it's a minute and 30 seconds. So, our concentration now is limited to this amount of time, So that simply means, sorry?
I was saying, and that time is short.
Exactly, it's short. You look at Twitter, and a lot of people, they can talk for hours about something that they saw on a post, not on an article that they read, but something they saw on a post. They can have a discussion for an hour. There are many people, when the newspapers will put a post, a lot of people will have a long discussion on that, but they haven't clicked to read an article. So all those things are damaging the way we analyze, the way our mental state is affected. We need to pull back. That's why every time I take a break from social media, I find myself thinking differently, because if you do not take a break from social media, something happens and you're getting robbed of your quality time, which is beautiful for a peace of mind, to be able to make super and solid decisions. You can only do that if you are able to pull back, from social media. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for your answer. I truly love it. You're also a person who also deals with relationships. You even wrote books on relationships and even marriage. I'd like to ask you this question: how can mental health issue affect your relationship with your partner, even career progression, or even with your casual relationships, even with parental relationship, any type of relationship?
Yeah, man. It can cause a big damage, because obviously, if you're not mentally okay, it simply means the way you view the world is different,
Sure.
With some people, obviously, the affirmations, if you have not been affirmed, you can easily put a strain on your spouse, expecting them to be everything that you never had, So it's really important for people to seek help in that regard, and just have somebody that you can talk to and address issues that you might have, because at the end of the day, we need to be in good state, and A lot of people have filed for divorce because they were not in a good space mentally, in a good shape mentally. So it can affect everything. Simply like I started when I was defining the mental health thing. If you're not in a good shape with mentally, definitely you will easily cause havoc. When I'm not in a good space, it's easy to raise a voice unnecessarily. Things that I could have tolerated at home, I can find myself shouting because I'm not in a good space. So I'm affecting my children, I'm affecting my wife, I'm always complaining because I'm tormented mentally.
Ish.
It's at work. You are not taking a break. You are always working. So you are overwhelmed. Because you are overwhelmed, you don't know how to handle your work. You are always at your desk. You putting many hours into your work, but the results are not showing because mentally you are not in a good space. You need to pull back, shut down, just go on holiday, just lie on the beach, relax, be in a good space so that when you come back, you are in a good space. Lastly, on this point, there are people who will work overnight and then basubmit umsebenzi wabo is still not correct. Why? Because you were not sleeping good hours. Sleep good hours and work. We used to have people in the high school who used to boast themselves. Cross night, but every time I'm a result, they come because all along when you were not fully focused, you were half asleep, just there at your desk, half asleep. When I'm sleeping, I'm recharging. By the time I wake up, my mind is fully functioning. So
recording in progress.
Mr. Gumede, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and for availing yourself for us. It's been truly an honor to have you. We've had a great time. We've learned a lot. And I believe that man will be changed. I believe this is the beginning of a paradigm shift. It's a beginning of a new perspective. And we will be in a new state, I believe. Before we close,
absolutely.
your parting words and then where we can get a hold of you.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think my parting words will be, especially to men, obviously, take care of yourself, man. It's not being selfish to take care of yourself, there's this thing that they say a lot whenever you fly, that before you could help the person next to you, whenever the mask, will drop, the oxygen mask, before you help a person next to you, make sure that you sort yourself out first, It's not being selfish, but you can only help others better after you've helped yourself, So take care of yourself. The biggest challenge that we have as men is that we want to conquer the world, but we don't want to conquer these things that are inside of us,
Yeah.
So the people next to you, the people that you love, the people that you care for, one of the ways of caring for people next to you is taking care of yourself, So the reason why we keep sharing these messages is not because, we don't have anything to talk about, but it's because we know this is very important for men.
Sure.
To be here and be fully present and take care of their families. So take care of yourself, man. Seek help. Just seek help. And a lot of people who go out seeking help, I think they get amazed that the minute you start seeking help, you get help, and then you realize that all these preconceived ideas that you had did not have substance. So right now you think people who think certain things about you, it's not true. Just go out and seek help and take care of yourself. And yeah, mina Thulani Yeyeye Gumede. I'm available on Instagram as Thulani Yeyeye Gumede. and Facebook as well. Thulani Yeyeye Gumede. That's all. Thank you so much for having me on this great platform. It's one person at a time. It's one brick at a time. So, yeah, we are not trying to build the pyramid on one day. It's just one brick at a time. And one day, people will be impacted. It starts now. Thank you so much.
I like that you're saying that, because I was just thinking that maybe we should have these conversation a bit more consistent. Even here on our platform as Empowerment Podcast, we need to consider having these conversation a bit more. And as you said, one brick at a time. We cannot build or change this thing that has been impacting people for a long time, and change it in one episode or with 3 episodes. It will take time. It will take consistent. It will take, patience and love and care. So thank you so much for availing yourself, Mr. Gumede. We hope to have such conversations again with you. We love having you on Empowerment Podcast. Hence, we always make time to call you to share and to hear from you. Thank you so much once again.
It's a pleasure, my leader. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for that. I strongly believe that the seed has been planted. So that's all we pray for.
Yes, sir. To all our beautiful listeners, we'd just like to say thank you so much for tuning in. And again, don't forget to purchase your Empowerment Podcast merchandise and spread the empowerment through clothing, because we are here to empower you, inspire you, and to equip you. We hope these sessions in the month of October, they definitely change how you view things, how you view people, and how you perceive people whenever they're saying they are not okay. I believe it has changed how you look at that. And from all our guests, from the ladies, Mrs. Kaba and Nompumelelo, thank you so much. To Dr. Khayelihle Makatini, to Mr. Ratiba, to the author himself, Mr. Thulani Yeyeye. Thank you so much, all guys. We appreciate his empowerment. We appreciate the contribution you've made to this topic. You were the ones who made it possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Empowerment Podcast. Inspire, equip, and empower.